Hey, want to take a walk on the wild side and experience the bleeding edge of technology? Then get ready, because it doesn't get much more edgy than this. You're in for a wild ride. You're listening to Sovryn Tech with your host, the man in triple black, the golden stallion of the tech world, Brian Sovryn. He's got a huge brain. And now, here's Brian.
Well, we work all day and we don't know why, but there's just one thing that money can't buy. When your body feels starved, feed your appetite. When you work all day, you gotta, all night. Oh, yeah.
That was poetic.
It was. A little kiss there for you. Anyway, as in the band. Though, of course, I am joined by the lovely and hyper-intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy, who I would gladly really kiss anytime.
Let's do that as soon as we hit the next break.
Okay, as soon as there's a break, all right. No, let me just write that down. No, anyway.
I don't think we need a reminder.
No, we don't need a reminder. It's a good thing there's a table here between us. Anyway. We got a great show lined up. Stephanie, I really appreciate you being on. As usual, you're always a great guest.
Thank you, Brian.
And we've got quite a few rapid fire stories that I want to get through, and we sort of have an interesting opening story that I really want to get into fast. So I'm just going to run right into these. Before I go much further, I do want to mention that last week I talked about NXT. The altcoin,
mm-hmm.
The next coin or next. There's a few different ways it can be said. But I do accept those now for donations to the show, as well as NameCoin. So now there's Bitcoin, Litecoin, NXT, BitShares PTS. That's actually what they call proto shares now. I'm still accepting those. And NameCoin. And it's all in the show notes. So if you want to donate to the show and help out with the show, I'd really appreciate it. And all those are available.
You know, the cool thing about Next is, so I set up a wallet for Next this week,
mm-hmm.
and the thing that I really thought was cool about it is that it's Java based, right? And so it is automatically a brain wallet. And for people who aren't familiar with that term, what that means is that you have a passphrase that you remember, and then you put it into some device, and you have access to your wallet. You don't have to download anything. You can access your wallet from anywhere as long as you remember that phrase.
Yeah, it's really handy. And since I'll mention that's in my rapid fire stories, actually, because NXT has a great Android wallet already. You know, the
Android wallet is great. The only thing I have reservations about is is it actually safe to have your, to have a brain wallet that you keep entering in different devices? Is that a security issue? Because with Bitcoin, when you make a brain wallet, you really only want to type it in once, and then you want to find some other solution for long-term storage of a large amount of Bitcoin.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because there's always a possibility. I don't know exactly how it works, but there's a possibility that it could get recorded somehow by the browser or seen by a camera or whatever. You don't want to keep using the same private key all the time, right?
Sure, but then, that's why there's a lot of, in NXT, there's a lot of transparency features built in to where maybe some of these things could actually be worked out.
What does that mean, though? What would be a solution to typing in your private key over and
over? Well, if someone took your money, you could probably check and see where it went.
That's interesting. Okay.
I don't know. But
what would you be able to do about it? Because it's irreversible transactions, right?
Right. I'm not exactly sure. This isn't even a month old. And
sure. Yeah. It does feel kind of exciting because it's almost like the Bitcoin, like the early days of Bitcoin when everybody was like, I don't have a fucking clue how to use this client. What do I do?
Yeah,
how do I send a Bitcoin?
That's an important thing I bring up all the time is the Bitcoin client was an atrocity when it first came out.
Yeah, it was kind of exciting in a weird way, because you're using this thing that nobody's been using before, and it's like the Wild West, and sometimes stuff happens when you're in the Wild West, and I thought it was cool. It brought back a little bit of nostalgia for me. I'm just saying there's probably going to have to be some solution, or maybe I'm just being paranoid. Maybe it's not a bad security practice to be typing in a private key over and over again, but it seems like it is to me.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or maybe there's some fix that they're going to apply.
One could say in that, like with your Google account, that's kind of the same argument, is that, well, I'm logging into my Google account everywhere I go. This is dangerous.
Well, that's true.
That's true. And sure, okay, but these are things that get worked out over time. These are things, the exciting thing is that these features already exist, because something else came out this week, and this is part of the rapid fire stories that I'm really excited about, is a real official Android wallet for LITECOIN, which didn't exist before. It kind of existed.
You are Brian, we always say on this show that you are like the ultimate hipster. And you literally found this wallet like the day it came out, didn't you?
Yeah, literally the day when it was finally released with the LITECOIN dev team behind it.
You knew about it. You had it on your phone before the developers did.
Yeah. Almost. No. But I think that's incredibly exciting. This is a huge part of something getting adoption. That's why I'm excited about the NXT wallet too, is that if you can't transact with somebody while you're walking down the street, what the hell's the point?
Yeah, it's exciting. And I remember we were at this Vegas conference, which we reviewed in a previous episode of Sovereign Tech.
Yes.
We were at this conference in Las Vegas, the Inside Bitcoins conference, and we actually got a chance to sit down and talk to Warren Tagami and Charlie Lee. Charlie Lee created Litecoin, and Warren Tagami is like a lead developer, and he also developed Fedora.
Yeah,
so he's like very famous.
Yeah, Warren's a celebrity. And just a top-notch guy.
A reluctant celebrity, yes. Yeah. He's very humble, but
yes.
But yeah, he was saying that like you're going to be able soon to run a full Litecoin node on your phone.
And that happened.
And yeah, that's what you can do now, right? You said this client is like a full node. Is that right?
And that's and there's the caveat in that it's not necessarily a wallet. Maybe they'll get this worked out, okay? It's not necessarily a wallet that you'd want to leave running, because it'll drain your battery in no time, because it is a full-on node.
So it's connecting to all these peers.
It connects to peers.
It would drain your battery?
Right. And so this isn't like the blockchain.info wallet where it's just accessing, some web API. Mm-hmm. Okay, this is a full-on, this is pretty much a client being put on. You can't mine with it. You can Litecoin mine on an Android phone, but that's a different story.
It's a node on the network,
but
right?
But you're a full-on node, which, there's ups and downs to that.
Does it download the blockchain onto your phone?
No, I don't believe so. But in that case,
then it can't really be a full node then, because the full node has
isn't that how Electrum works?
But Electrum is not a full node; it's a light node.
It's a light node
because it doesn't have its own copy of the blockchain. It accesses one that's stored on a server somewhere. So what I'm wondering about with this Litecoin client is like, I remember there was talk about having a pruned blockchain for Litecoin. Uh-huh. And so like we're probably going to lose people here, but like with Bitcoin or Litecoin or any coin that has a blockchain-based ledger that tells you where all the coins are, you don't really need to know all the history of where every coin has been over its lifetime.
Right.
You just really need to know the last address that it's been in.
Right.
So that's called the unspent transaction output set or something like that, the UTXO set.
Right.
And that's actually a lot smaller than the entire blockchain. So it's basically like a shorthand form of the blockchain. And if you could download a copy of that, for instance, instead of downloading all the history ever that nobody needs to care about if they're running a client on their phone, it would make life a lot easier because you wouldn't be storing this huge amount of data that you don't really need.
Right. Okay.
Unless you're using the blockchain for some other purpose, like record keeping or historicals or notary services or domain names or whatever, right? But with Litecoin, if you're running a wallet, all you really need to know is where the last place the coins are.
Right.
Is.
But there's a lot of communication going on from that wallet either way. There's an actual setting. There's a button that you hit that says disconnect, because they must be very well aware this is going to drain the shit out of your
yeah, that's
battery.
useful to have, especially if you have a limited data plan too.
Yeah, and it's like hitting an exit button. It's so there's a lot going on when running this wallet, but it's there, it works. It does the business.
By the way, speaking of unlimited data plans, I just have to put in a plug because I recently switched my phone service from another large phone carrier to Sprint through the Sovereign Tech affiliate link.
That's right. We do have an affiliate link for Sprint, and if you use that affiliate link, you get some money, I get some money, everybody's happy.
Yeah, and actually I got more money because I'm going to be saving at least like $40 a month on the plan that I had.
Right. And with Sprint, a lot of people talk about, well, I got to use Verizon or AT&T because of the coverage. Well, that gap's closing fast.
Definitely, yeah. The coverage in Sprint is really good, and we live in East Bumblefuck, New Hampshire.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we live in the proverbial sticks, and to get 4G, especially Spark 4G, which is Sprint's new technology where it's actually using 3 bands of 4G. It's the fastest internet in America.
Cool. That's only available on like really new phones. And
Yeah.
I have to say it does work really well.
Yeah.
It's supposed to like boost, let you get 4G inside buildings and stuff where the signal might be kind of weak.
Right.
And it seems to work really well.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So that the idea is, well, I got to stick with Verizon. Okay, yeah, if you're going to PorcFest, Sprint still might not work the best. It does work there, but by and large, this gap is really closing to where Sprint is just
every
about
year.
anywhere.
It gets better at PorcFest too, because there are more cell towers added, and there are like solutions that libertarians. They're very creative, and they don't want to spend a week in the woods with no internet, so they find a way.
Yeah, they
like
figure
last
things
year,
out.
somebody hauled up a satellite or something.
Yeah, or there is even experimenting with Open Garden.
Yeah, I think that'll be bigger this year,
and
too.
that should be a bigger deal this year, to where devices can just mesh network together, and one of them is going to have internet access, and then you're good.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we talked about the wallets. I found that to be really, really exciting, because that is one of the key steps that I think Litecoin was missing to becoming an even bigger deal. And there's already articles out there saying that 2014 could be the year of Litecoin, if 2013 was the year of Bitcoin, which is a pretty good case. I mean, if you got to 1,200, if you went from $15 to $1,200 by the end of the year, yeah, that's your year. No doubt about it.
So, Brian, is it the mark of the beast?
Bitcoin?
You're talking about carrying around your wallet with you.
No, that's not the mark of the beast.
We had something happen to us this week that you were like waiting for. You were just waiting for the other shoe to drop, which was like you predicted that Christians were going to say that Bitcoin is the mark of the beast. And somebody did say that this week. Yeah,
actually, if you go a year back on Sovryn Tech, I did a Bitcoin special, okay? I made a couple mistakes in the show, but by and large, everybody really liked it was a very introductory special. Mm-hmm. This is I think it came out even in 2012. So pretty early on. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people were really appreciative of it. And anyway, I know I made a couple mistakes in there, so please, you don't have to email me and tell me what those are. I'm aware of them. But I did quote in that, I did say that, hey, look, a lot of Christians who think that the mark of the beast in the book of Revelation is a literal thing, and in Revelation it says without the mark you won't be able to buy or sell. I was just waiting, so I called this a long time ago. I was waiting for some Christians, not all, I know, not all. Hey, not all Christians, I know, okay? I know not all of you, got it. All right. That they would be saying that this is the mark of the beast. And there's books already out there now saying that Bitcoin is the mark of the beast. There's seminars going on where people are saying that Bitcoin is the mark of the beast, and that, or at least digital currencies are, perhaps more so, whatever. But it's not true. In fact, even from a Christian perspective, in my opinion, not true. Because the mark of the beast isn't a literal thing in the book of Revelation. Now, how do I know that? Fine. We're talking about more Bitcoin than I'd care to on the show, but what the hell? We'll run with it.
Yeah, I'm on the show. We got to talk about Bitcoin.
In Revelation, in Revelation 9, chapter 9, you have what's called the seal of God. Mm-hmm. Okay, now, to make this clear, I haven't heard a single liberty-minded person bring this point up yet. But to make it equally clear, I've never heard a whole lot of Christians, and I used to be one, bring this point up. Okay, just haven't. So anyway,
again, Brian saying things that nobody else says. Hey, this is why people listen to Sovryn Tech. Really.
It's funny, but at the same time, I feel like there's a lot of truth to the fact that no, I don't. That's why I do a show, because my opinion's not out there. Anyway, there are other Christians who are aware of the point I'm about to bring up, but just you don't hear it out there. Anyway, so in Revelation 9, you have what's called the seal of God, okay, or the mark of God, which is on the forehead and on the right hand. And
those are the things that Jews wear on the...
Right, you have the tefillin and the phylacteries that kind of go in the same
which
places.
Is like a box with like writing...
Yeah, or you have like a leather paper. Band that you wrap around your hand when you pray, and then there's something you wear on your forehead. Yeah, it's representative. It's representative of the law.
Mm-hmm.
That's what those things
are. So the mark of God is the law.
Is the law.
Yeah.
Okay. And so then what's the mark of the beast? Because the mark of the beast is on the forehead or the right hand too. And so what everybody thinks is that it means that there's going to be a barcode on your forehead or that there's going to be a chip in your right hand. No. The Bible's telling you it can't be literal, because if the mark of God is the law, then the mark of the beast would be the antithesis, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not something literal.
So the mark of the beast would be anarchy.
Is anarchy. It's literally lawlessness.
That sounds great.
Yeah, absolutely. So, sign me up. But the point is that it has nothing to do. Yes, it's true. You cannot buy or sell, without it. But that's because you can't buy or sell without accepting the Antichrist. That's the mark of the beast that the Bible talks about. That's how the Bible itself lays it out. Not some asshat's opinion of what they think it will be. That's what the book itself says. Okay. So Anyway, we move on. And did I mention that when I use the general term Christians, I know it's not all Christians?
I think you did mention that.
Did we get that clear yet? That it's not all Christians? Oh boy.
I'm clear on that.
How many times I get emails or messages from people saying, not all Christians think that. Well, no shit. You're an individual. I know you don't all think that way.
Dan Savage calls those the NALT Christians. NALT is not all like that.
Yeah.
And he gets it too, because he's always talking about on his show how he gets emails from NALT Christians, and they're all like, hey, I like gays. I'm a buddy Christian. I support your...
Right, and that's equally annoying, because it's just somehow that just suddenly makes Christianity perfectly logical and okay.
No, I have no problem with it, because some Christians...
Sign me up, I'm going to church.
Yeah, right.
I mean, this changes everything. One person out there is okay with gays. This is awesome. Wow, why didn't I know about this before? Wow. Anyway...
Yeah, and he okay, anyway, yeah, let's move on.
Let's get into the rest of the rapid fire stories, and then I think we'll save our main story for Tech Roulette. How
cool.
about that? The other stories I have are that nowhere near as exciting. Amazon, this is kind of game news, but Amazon bought Double Helix, which is a game developer company. They're known for making the recent remake of Killer Instinct, which is a kind of a Mortal Kombat Street Fighter 2 fighting game sort of thing. And now I mentioned before last week that Amazon is planning on making their own Android console. Okay, now Android consoles, video game consoles, are already out there. Like, people are already making them. There's the Ouya. Okay.
Ooh, yeah.
But here's the thing that everybody says about Android, not just the consoles, but Android in general. There's no quote unquote killer app. There's no Mario for Android, that just makes you have to have the system.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so, like, the Ouya, a lot of people think the Ouya is not selling well because, there isn't that one game that everybody's just dying to play. Well, guess what? Double Helix is a big enough company with enough talent to where they could make that one game that, you're going to have to buy an Amazon console to play. So, the dream unfolds. I mean,
is Amazon the mark of the beast?
Who knows? No.
Well, pretty soon it seems like you won't be able to buy or sell without it, right?
That's true. Well,
at least buy things anyway.
Yeah.
Well, most of the world gets by just fine without Amazon, actually.
I'll bring up this point, too, while we are talking a little bit Bitcoin here. A lot of people are talking about, and you did, in fact, Stephanie, you did a fantastic interview with the head of Overstock.com.
Yeah, Patrick Byrne.
Yeah, Patrick
He's a cool
Byrne.
guy.
Great guy. Great mindset, obviously, talented and an excellent CEO.
Yeah, he's a libertarian.
He's the real
out of
thing.
the closet as could be.
Yep, love him. He has no fear in what he says, which is really, really endearing. But he kind of made a comment, and some other people have made a comment, not just him. Lots of people have been saying this. Look, so many people are going to start accepting Bitcoin. Amazon's going to have to do it eventually. And I disagree. I totally disagree. I've mentioned this on Free Talk Live. I never really gave my reasons for that, but I think Amazon is creating such an incredible service They may accept Bitcoin 30 years down the line, but and indirectly they're accepting Bitcoin with gift, right? GYFT.
Well, they didn't have anything to do with that.
No, they have nothing to do with that.
You can buy an Amazon gift card on gift, and you can pay for it with Bitcoin, but you're paying gift.
Right. And just my point being is that Amazon it doesn't need it. There's
You think they're going to try to make their own coin?
They may try to do their own coin. They kind of have already done that. But they have so many things going on in the works. Like, I mean, here's the big thing. As I mentioned this on the show before, too, was that they're coming out with point-of-sale systems, okay? Which means that they actually, Amazon will be literally in the retail market. So even when you go brick and mortar, you're dealing with Amazon, whether you realize it or not. And so I think they have all the pieces in place to where they can, they could make their own coin. Not like the Amazon coins they have now, but like a Bitcoin competitor. And it would undeniably do very well. Because any coin, this is how I feel about cryptocurrencies. You have to have, when you start out, you have to have one of two things. Okay, you either have to have an incredibly unique and new feature set or necessary feature set, or you have to have an infrastructure. You have to have one of those. If you have one of those, you're going to do pretty well as a cryptocurrency, okay? Like Bitcoin and Litecoin have a great infrastructure, even if they don't have, like, the grand feature set. You take something like Next, and that, or NameCoin, those have unique feature sets, okay, that put, even though they don't have an infrastructure yet. Yeah. They have unique feature sets that makes them intriguing.
Ethereum, too. Everybody's excited about that.
Yeah, Ethereum, same thing. No real infrastructure, even though it can attach to other cryptocurrencies. No real infrastructure, but it has an incredible feature set. Turing completeness, all that business, okay? Amazon has the infrastructure. In fact, they have the most incredible infrastructure of anything out there. Yeah. There's no need even for a feature set. And I'm not saying this is a bad or evil thing. I'm just saying they don't need Bitcoin. With the present plan they have going, it's just not necessary, and you're still going to get from them, be it through gift or if you just end up using, FRNs. So anyway, I'm glad actually the conversation got to that, because a lot of people are talking about all these people accepting Bitcoin, and by and large I don't want them to, and I don't, and B, I don't think it'll happen. Another quick bit of gaming news. In this one I'm very personally excited about is that there will be a new Duke Nukem game coming out February 25th. And also, which is, a lot of people find that to be a contradiction.
Why are you excited about that?
That's a long story that sometime we'll have to go over, because Duke Nukem is
Can you give me the executive summary?
Impossible, because I don't know.
Okay.
So
okay. Well, at least you're honest.
Yeah. So anyway, and of course, what some of the biggest news this week that we'll just cover quick is Microsoft has finally got a new CEO. Satya Nadella, who has worked for Microsoft for a good 20 years. Some people were expecting him to be the CEO. I think, personally, my opinion, I think it's a fail. They should have gotten Scott Forstall. They should have gotten somebody young and with some serious vision, because that's what Microsoft needs. I don't think that's what every company needs, but I think for Microsoft to do what they want to do in the world that we exist in as it is today, required a young visionary. Forstall's the only guy that could have done it, and they dropped the ball. Well, maybe in 5 years they'll change their mind. I don't know. We'll be back with more Sovryn Tech.
Hey, look! Got an energy spike. Pull back! Launch. Now!
Bombing the Narn back to the Stone Age wasn't enough for you?
Then we heard it. The sound of something terrible being born.
This is madness.
Station 3 to Commander Ivanova.
Centauri have launched a full-scale assault.
Time is coming on! It's our turn now!
2 million tons of spinning metal, all alone in the night. A world where empires rise and fall, where dreams are born and die, where war and hatred are challenged by love and faith. In the third age of mankind, an age plagued by an evil empire that seeks to destroy humanity. It is our last, best hope for peace, for victory, for freedom. It is Babylon 5.
Babylon 5 is available for download on your favorite torrent site. See it now to experience the greatest show in television history. Babylon 5.
Tech Roulette. Want to play?
It is time for Tech Roulette, where I get to talk about stories that get sent to me through the various channels on Sovryn Tech. You can email me, sovereigntech@riseup.net. You can get in touch with me through Twitter, be it tweeting to me, or even direct messaging me, your choice. You can
it's the best way to get in touch with celebrities. Tweet at them.
Yeah,
right?
Twitter's really like I don't know, that's the real mall of the world.
You were tweeting at Giorgio Tsoukalos last night.
I was.
Did he reply?
No reply as yet. So,
he's a busy guy chasing those UFOs.
I know, he's got to find those aliens. They got to be somewhere. Are they over there?
Right.
Anyway. Boy, and that's the other one that always gets me, is because I talk about some pretty controversial things, a lot of ideas that other people don't really want to talk about, and I instantly get, well, what, do you believe in aliens? No, I fucking don't believe in aliens, okay? Really. It's I'm debating, like, at points, maybe I should put in the picture for the show, like, just put, like, in really nice lettering saying, I don't mean all Christians. I don't believe in aliens, and just go down like all the list of things that I have to answer, because it gets so much.
Since when do you care what people think of you, Brian?
I generally don't, but I get so many emails, and like half of them are this kind of thing where it's like, well, I'm not that kind of Christian. Well, great, good for you. Then, if you're not that kind of Christian, I'm obviously not talking about you. Or if you believe in aliens.
Sometimes it has more to do with them than it has to do with you.
Well, of course it does.
I mean,
yeah, but I don't want to be like mean and, well, why should I care about that? You don't want to call
I think if you put a disclaimer in your show album art, it would draw more attention to whatever you're disclaiming.
You're probably right. In fact, this is an interesting trick, about you do tricks in naming a show something. I wonder if I should have named it Christian something, like Christian Tech, but for it to be
I would not have listened to that if you did. I'm glad you didn't name it that.
How many people would have that never heard an atheist speak before?
That's a good point.
So anyway, yeah, I hear you. But let's get into where actually I'm going to skip the Tech Roulette.
Sorry, just one second, Brian. We did a show a while ago, and it was called Christian Nymphos, because the website of the week was christiannymphos.org or whatever. This website that's promoting marital bliss among Christian married straight couples. And we actually got reblogged on a Christian website. I don't think they listened to the show, but they did repost it.
No, and real quick point, if this is the first time you're listening to Sovryn Tech, this is the most I've ever talked about Christianity on the show. I generally do not. So please don't think that this is a show where I just harp on Christians the whole time. That's not what this is about. Generally, I do talk about just science and technology and a little bit of liberty sprinkled in there. Could you zoom that out for me?
Yes.
Okay, so anyway, yeah, you just heard a little shop talk there. But let's get into this. This isn't actually the Tech Roulette, but this is a story that's very interesting, and I want to talk about with you, Stephanie. And it's Google Glass. Okay, now this is something that I regularly complain about on Sovryn Tech.
You do not like the glass holes.
I do not like the glass holes. But now for Google Glass, and someone might think I'm like happy about this, but I'll say it right out. I'm not. There's a sex app for Google Glass. Oh boy,
there's an app for everything, isn't there?
Yeah, no, this isn't. There was a commercial on YouTube that Jimmy Dean made. I can call him Jimmy. Anyway, that Jimmy Dean made.
He's like family.
He is actually like family to me.
He is in your family.
But anyway, Jimmy Dean did a comedic video of what it would be like to have sex with glass. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this isn't that. This is actually the real thing. Where there is an actual app, and I'm reading from Gizmodo, and I'll read here quickly, but mainly I just want opinions, especially yours, Stephanie, on this whole business. It's been obvious from the very beginning that the ultimate Google Glass experience would somehow involve hot, sweaty sex. And now, thanks to an upcoming app, the star of the hot, sweaty sex experience can be you. Sex with Google Glass is exactly what it sounds like, a Google Glass app for sexy sex havers. More specifically, it enables you to do all kinds of things while banging. You can film the carnal action from both your and your partner's points of view and watch it right after, as in because you're both wearing glass, but only right after, since the app deletes the video after 5 hours. You can control the sex soundtrack. You can even ask Google which position you should try next.
Wow.
So I don't know if in the middle that means you say, okay,
Holy
Glass.
shit.
Okay, Glass, what position should I do next? If that's not a boner killer, because like
I don't think that's sexy.
No,
I just
right.
don't. I mean, okay, so have you ever had the experience where you're having sex with someone and you're like, oh, what do you want to do? Like, what position do you want to try next? I've had that before, but I don't want to ask a computer.
No, right, yeah.
That's part of the fun is asking your partner.
Yeah, it's good to communicate with each other when you're having sex. I don't think it's hot or you know.
No, because
rude.
it can't feel pleasure. It's part of the fun to do that and say what would feel best to you. Oh, let me think about that. That's fun to think about. You know,
right.
That's fun. That's sexy, but. Asking a computer, no. I'm sorry. I'm usually not a Luddite, but on this one, I really have to say that this is just too much. I don't think I would ever be interested in using this. I mean...
Yeah, I agree. The app is called Glance, and I'm not a Luddite at all. I do a science and tech show, obviously.
Now, now one thing I'm thinking about is like a totally non-sexual application for this. Like,
sure.
It might be kind of cool if you were doing a podcast with somebody remotely, or let's say... and you were both wearing Google Glass and you could both kind of broadcast whatever you're doing. Like maybe there's a reporter on the scene or something like that, and you could do a split screen with the two people's views of what they're doing at once. Or if there's like, you know, maybe there's like a ski competition going on and you can have a view from each one of the skiers to see where they are in the course, and you can put a split screen and have like all 6 skiers wearing Google Glass or something. But that's not sex.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. That's where I feel Google Glass is actually a good thing, is in the professional fields.
Yeah.
Is in these creative fields. Okay, fine, you're doing a podcast. Sure, that's not real life. You know, or...
You don't think that's going to be abused if somebody's filming their sex life, right?
Abused how?
Like the NSA is going to have that video.
Well, of course they are.
Of course they are.
And this is, you know, one of the things that Glance, which is the app, that they say, you know, don't worry, you've got privacy because...
Oh, yeah. That's what they said about every other app that they had up to this point, and that was complete bullshit.
Right. They give you the option to save, apparently, but if you don't save it, it goes away after 5 hours. No.
No, it doesn't.
You know,
just like Snapchat goes away after a few minutes.
Yeah, Snapchat gets saved for at least 24 hours, if not longer. Come on.
And then pretty soon it's, oh yeah, well we did share your data with some companies, but it's totally just metadata. Oh yeah, well we did share it with the NSA, but it's just metadata. It's not zooming in on your particular activities.
Right, or maybe they pull like an Instagram where in their terms of service, of course, Instagram went back on this. They listened to customer demand, thankfully. They do like Instagram where they say, we're going to use your username and pictures to sell to advertisers.
Oh man.
And so, you know, what if Glance put that in the terms of service and nobody noticed, you know, because hey, they're in the heat of the moment and they download the app, you know, mid-fuck.
Okay, we're going to have to institute a new rule. Have you ever heard this rule that if you're about to get it on, you always take your socks off because you don't want to be like standing there nude except for your socks?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to have to add one thing to that, and that's take off your Google Glass. Do not wear your Google Glass during sex.
Yeah, I agree.
Glasses, yes, glasses are sexy, okay?
Yes, glasses
Take
themselves can be
your analog
sexy.
glasses and put those on your face. Take your Google Glass off. Do not wear your Google Glass during sex.
Yeah,
that is just too much.
Yeah, and if they're one and the same, well, sorry, you can't wear the windshield anymore.
Yeah,
during
that can be useful.
Yeah,
and fun.
Oh yeah, it's great. You know, and this isn't like, it's tough because this isn't an argument against video. You know, video recording. Or taking pictures of yourself having sex or whatever. I mean, because that can be hot, and to watch it later is pretty hot. But this is just kind of weird, and even that, you know, I'm okay with video recording things, but I have a Vivitar camera. It's a little handheld, runs off of SD cards, doesn't transmit a thing.
Yeah.
The only way you're getting that data off there is if you hook up a USB cable, or you know, you plug in the SD card somewhere else,
or if you have a mosquito drone in the room.
Yeah. Oh boy. look that up on Snopes and prepare to be terrified as far as that mosquito drone goes, because guess what? Snopes can't disprove it. And that's scary. Anyway, right. And so my point being is that, like, in that case, and I'm a pretty open, you know, I say it all the time, I'm a very open guy. I am in no way closed off about my sexuality by any means. I'm not, you know, I mean, if someone walked in a room and saw me having sex, woohoo, you know, if I lived in a glass house, I love glass houses. I'd be like, you know, and somebody's walking through the woods and they happen to see me fucking, okay. You know, I mean, so it is, you know, as long as the other person's comfortable with that, of course, you know, but, you know, so I'm not about that, but I am aware of, I am conscious of how the other person feels, and, you know, to put
Are there certain people you wouldn't want to see you having sex?
Well, I guess that's a good question, because there's people who, sure, no, I don't really want them to see me,
especially if you
sex.
knew they were watching. Like, if someone was standing right next to you, like, I can think of it's a short list of people that I would allow to stand next to me while I was having sex with someone else, you know? Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad you mentioned that, because yes, like, there's, you know, I'm open to sexual, you know, I'm open to sexuality being open. Mm-hmm. Okay. But right, that doesn't necessarily mean that, like, say I had the glass house. The glass house would be like way back in the woods, you know, or something. I mean, just the world's not ready for that. People can't, you know, I mean, that's really it, is that the world's not ready for for everybody to be an exhibitionist.
Yeah, and doesn't it impact your own pleasure too, in some ways, if you know that somebody like your enemy is watching you or something?
Yeah, I mean, like, if somebody just, it'd be awkward, and this is why Google Glass is awkward. If somebody just kind of like walked up to you and just like stood there, oh no, please keep going. This is great. You know, I mean, that could be kind of strange.
They've got a little clipboard. They're taking notes.
Yeah.
Well, so on the concept of sex apps in general, and if you have more to say, go.
No,
please. Go ahead,
I'm all over the place.
Have we ever talked about Bang with Friends on this show?
I don't think so.
Apparently, it's like really popular. So this is an app that somehow hooks into your Facebook, and you can like select your friends who you would like to bang.
Right.
And they can do the same if they have the app installed. And if you match, then it notifies you both. So you only get notified if the other person says, yes, they also want to bang you.
Was this on Facebook?
It's an app that works with Facebook.
Right.
Yeah. It's a plug-in for Facebook or something like that.
Wasn't this a scam?
No, it's real.
Okay, it really did. Okay.
Yeah, it's real. I can look up the website.
Some of these things, like the Divorce Finder, or I don't know what they were called. There was some
What's the divorce?
Well, I don't think it was called Divorce Finder, but people were saying that it was causing divorces. Was that there were Facebook apps that said, "Hey, this person thinks you're hot. Click here to find out who it is." Mm-hmm. You know, and you'd have all this kind of stuff, and it would kind of show a picture from your friends list, and so you're like, wait, who is that? No, I can kind of recognize, and you know, and you would click to find out, and it was actually, you know, it was pretty much malware, or like a way to get to advertising, which that may as well be malware.
Yeah, it's social engineering.
So, but Bang with Friends, tell me about it.
Well, it actually, I just found out that it rebranded itself, because apparently Bang with Friends was too edgy of a name. So it rebranded itself as Down. Are you down?
That's not edgy at all.
Are you down? Are you down for the night? Yeah, so that's what it's called now. It's called Down. The website is downapp.com. And, you know, it's on Android. Oh, surprise, surprise. Apple is banning Bitcoin apps, but it's not banning fucking apps.
Oh, I'm actually shocked, because they have a pretty stringent anti-porn policy.
Well, this isn't porn. It's just...
Oh, right.
It's quote, safe anonymous dating in your social network.
Wow. You know, I don't want to get sidetracked, but I want to bring this up too, because a lot of people are talking about it, and I haven't heard anybody say this yet, with the whole, you know, the blockchain.info app getting blocked out of the App Store, or getting removed from the App Store. And so essentially there are no Bitcoin apps available for iOS products. Again, I'm not ripping on OS X. iOS, if anyone thinks, because a lot of people were destroying their iPhones and their iPads and like, oh, I'm going to go to Android.
Yeah.
If anybody is under the impression that somehow Google is this bastion of freedom and liberty,
No.
And that somehow you think that they won't do this maybe a year or even a year or two down the line, oh, you're mistaken. You're sadly mistaken. That it's going to happen. Now, Android itself is a pretty open platform.
Right.
Okay, so you could still get any app you want on there through the F-Droid store or whatever. But the Play Store, Google's privately owned Play Store, I guarantee is going to get rid of Bitcoin stuff down the line too. Yeah,
that would be sad.
Oh yeah, but I just don't want people under the assumption somehow Google is just this wonderful. Oh, God bless the Play Store. No, it's just as bad.
Well, it's sad. I mean, it's really sad that there aren't a lot of options for mobile phones that really support freedom yet. I know there's the dark phone or the black phone. What is it called?
Yeah, there's a black phone. There's the Ubuntu has a phone coming out, which is a really good way to look. There's Firefox OS, which is another option to look at. But Android in and of itself is fine. I think because you can modify Android any way you want, and there's stores that, and this is something. Like with the Play Store, the reason people use the Play Store and they consider it so important, along with the App Store, it's the same reasoning, is that Google and Apple will vet the programs to some degree. Okay, so what you're downloading is secure. Okay, now for Android, you have what's called the F-Droid Store, which that is... that doesn't have, the apps that go up there generally aren't vetted by any company, but that's because anything in the F-Droid store that goes up is open source. So you can vet it yourself.
Right.
And that's the ultimate in security.
Yeah. Do you think people ever get complacent with open source software and they're like, well, it's open source, so it must be fine?
It's a fallacy. The open source fallacy is that if it's open source, it's okay. That's not true. You got to have some knowledge. You got to trust people, who are into it and looking at it. So you don't want to fall into that. But things being open source is a far more secure system than trusting Apple or Google to keep everything in line.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm glad that point got out there too. So sex with Google Glass. I mean, it's not just a fashion thing. We're like, boy, that looks ridiculous that you're wearing it. And boy, I can imagine, at least for myself, some scenarios where I've been fucking, there's no way that stuff would have stayed on my face.
Right.
I mean, that's not happening. Especially, I mean, I don't have hair. I mean, I'm bald. That, the sweat starts pouring, the hot, sweaty sex, that stuff's going to fall right off.
That's why you need like a strap to keep it on your face.
Yeah, maybe I need like an action strap. Oh, I won't look dorky at all then.
That's the other thing. It's not attractive. Like nobody looks good wearing Google. It's just not symmetrical. Yeah. It's not sexy. Ugh.
Yeah, and people say, well, it'll get better. We're years, maybe a decade even away from where where Google Glass is going to look like decent, like normal to what we're used to.
Yeah, have fun with that.
Yeah, so just another...
Well, Brian, next it'll be on contact lenses.
Yeah, there's a movie called Sight people should watch if you're curious about that. Go to YouTube, look up Sight.
Time now for 90 Seconds on Sex with Dr. Paul.
There's a legal case that adds a fascinating twist to the idea of what consent is when it comes to sex. Now, in this case, the woman agreed to have intercourse, and it was only after intercourse had started that she indicated she didn't want it to continue. And it's not like the guy kept thrusting for hours. He kept going for a bit, and then pulled out as the woman requested. But she later filed charges, and he was convicted of rape because he didn't stop the moment she indicated she wanted him to stop. Now, believe it or not, when this case went before a 3-person court of appeals, it was the lone female judge who wanted it overturned. The 2 male judges voted to uphold the guilty verdict. This was a very unusual case, but it's an important reminder that the second a partner indicates that she or he wants to stop having sex, put it back in your pants immediately. If you're upset, discuss it the next day, or possibly over the phone if you think it could turn into a confrontation. Why would a willing intercourse partner suddenly say to stop? Well, she may have started to sober up, or she began feeling physical pain, or unpleasant memories having nothing to do with you suddenly invaded her mind. Be respectful, give her space, and offer to talk about it when she's feeling more in control.
For more, visit 90secondsonsex.com.
Software of the Week.
It is time for Software of the Week, where I talk about software that's that I find useful, sometimes terrible, or even something that's up and coming. Like at one point for Software of the Week, I actually talked about M.U.L.E, or Hemless, which is up and coming. And actually, this
app is going to qualify as up and coming.
Yeah, this is this falls under both
Great
up
pun.
and coming.
Great pun.
And it's called Wingman. And now it's not what you think, because usually when you think wingman is someone that helps you out during a date, right? Is that?
Or I think it's somebody who helps you pick up women.
Yeah, that too. Right.
It's like a friend that's like helping you pick up women as a guy.
Right. So this is something with a variety of meanings, and now it's about to get a new one. Because Wingman is an app that will be, as far as I know, available on iOS and Android. Maybe if, a lot of people that use Microsoft fly planes a lot, so maybe it'll come out for Windows Phone. I don't know. But Wingman is an app that will get you sex on a plane. So that's it should be called like the Mile High Club app or something.
Now, Brian, how are you supposed to find people to bang on a plane when you're not supposed to use a cell phone on a plane?
Well, you find out before you take off.
Okay.
And so
it's a pretty short window of time to work with there.
Right, but you would choose voluntarily to put up the fact that you are on this flight and you are looking to join the Mile High Club or to continue, your club dues. Okay. And
club dues.
And
clever.
So then you will, someone will, who's sitting there, maybe waiting for the plane to take off. You can flip through and see, there's a picture of the person. Okay. Is this person attractive or whatever? And then before the plane takes off, you can say yes. And then, when the fasten seatbelt light comes off, so do the pants, and it's in the bathroom or however it ends up working out.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Okay, by the way, I don't know what world these people are living in, but when I go on flights, I travel a lot for business. Those bathrooms are barely big enough to take a shit in. I know. Let alone fuck. You can barely fit one person in, let alone two people.
Yeah,
if the people are of any kind of significant size, then it's going to be even more difficult.
Right. Now, that's the thing. See, I have fucked on a plane, and
really,
it wasn't
with me.
No, it was in first class.
Oh, well, yeah, that's the way you got to do it, definitely.
It can happen.
Yeah.
A lot of ways, but the bathroom in particular is very nicely sized in first class. Delta, love you. But, no. Anyway, I agree because, especially me, I'm 6'1", 200 pounds of
6'1", tons of fun.
Yeah, pretty broad shoulders. The whole business. There's just no way it's happening. So this Wingman thing, I don't know who exactly is going to be using this and how.
Yeah, you're getting down to a really small pool of people. If you just want to go in first class, there's really like 10 people in first class. Most of them are old white guys,
Yeah, not a lot of people even want to bother with that anymore.
Not saying they don't need love too, but
Right. It's true.
I have never seen an attractive person that I wanted to fuck in first class. I've flown a little bit in first class. Like sometimes I'll get bumped, or once in a while I'll fly first class. But yeah, just not really. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I don't really see this. I don't see this taking off.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. Good pun.
But hey, whatever. I mean, I could be wrong. You have a lot of these kind of apps like Grindr, Tinder.
You told me about Tinder the other day. I didn't know about that, but that's like Grindr for straight people.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Or for I'll say straight people, because you could set up more than just a couple people.
So you can use it for groups.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. From what I gather.
Nice.
So I haven't really messed with Tinder
cool
personally. So, but that's interesting. So, I mean, these things are up and coming. I don't some people might want to debate the shallowness of such apps. I don't know where I stand on that. Maybe we'll talk about that in a little bit.
It gets kind of weird because it's almost like you're banging the person's profile instead of them. Like your profiles are coming together, not your real life bodies.
Yeah, so the digital world may not be translating too well in this case. We'll be back with more. We'll talk about some more sex.
From Big Finish Productions, Blake 7, The Classic Audio Adventures.
I'm taking Liberator in on manual. We'll be in teleport range in 2 minutes.
What the hell was that?
Information. Liberator has been attacked.
You don't say.
Put up the force wall.
Confirmed.
Message to all ground commanders. Initiate the final phase. Let's crush these rebels once and for all.
My name is Avon. Kerr Avon.
Kerr Avon.
Our hostage arrives, but you may be unnecessary.
As a hostage, it's nice to be superfluous.
You can go to Blake7.com to find more of the new adventures of one of science fiction's greatest masterpieces, Blake 7, at Blake7.com. It is time for listener emails. And today, thankfully, for a great listener email, which often end up being more like listener topics. And so I usually just want to get right into it because I love it because, my listeners ask me these really big questions, and I only have not even 10 minutes to talk about it. And they usually write out a really long thing. And so I don't always read off the whole long conversation that they email me, but I just kind of get right into the topic. And of course, if you want to be mentioned by name, you can say, hey, you can mention that I asked this and I will mention it. But most people want to remain anonymous, and that's my default standard, is to not say who you are, though I may screw up on saying he or she at times. So, but even that, unlike some shows, even that's pretty anonymous because my ratio of female listeners that I'm aware of is very high.
Yeah,
in comparison to my male listeners, and I'm very, very happy about that. That pleases me to no end. So
you don't even have a shrine. You don't need one.
No need for a shrine.
Yeah, it's true gender equality.
That's
here.
right. That's right. True equal worth. And this week has to do with PIV. Now, Stephanie, what is PIV?
PIV is a phrase that I love to repeat. I can't remember. I think I first heard it on the Sex is Fun podcast, which is now defunct, but it went for like 6 or 7 years or something like that. It was a great show, especially when Kidder Caper was on it, because he was like the most libertarian of all the hosts. He quit because I think everybody else was too statist for him. But
wow, okay,
and too he basically quit the show and said he was going to fight religious conservatism and statism.
Right.
Yeah, and so that was cool. But anyway, I think I heard this phrase from him. PIV means penis and vagina, so it means sexual intercourse between a male and a female,
right,
where the penis is goes into the vagina. Yeah, it's kind of self-explanatory, but it is kind of a play on the word VIP, very important person.
Right.
So it's, instead of VIP,
it's
PIV.
just in reverse. Yeah.
Yeah,
very clever. So the question pretty much is sex just PIV? Is that all sex is? And is that the only end game? Now, I don't mean, this isn't like a Bill Clinton trick question where is oral sex actually sex?
Depends on what the definition of, I can't do a good Bill Clinton voice.
Yeah,
depends on what the definition of is.
Yeah, what does is mean? You mean jizz? No, is. What does is mean? Anyway. But
I did not have sex with that woman.
Did not have sexual relations. I had a sexual encounter. Anyway, so the question is more is that the end game? Is that all that sex is supposed to end up being, is penis and vagina? Sure, you have all this foreplay. There can be a blowjob. There can be, cunnilingus, whatever. But at the end of the day, if you didn't have PIV, if you didn't have penis and vagina, you didn't have actual sex.
That is ridiculous.
It is. It is ridiculous.
It's a very heteronormative. I'm going to use this word even though I may regret it, but it's a very heteronormative view of sex, because in that definition of sex, 2 women cannot have sex.
Right, sure.
Unless
or
maybe
2 guys.
Maybe one of them uses a strap-on. But yeah, two guys definitely can't have sex.
Yeah,
because nobody's got a vagina.
Yeah,
right. And so that's one aspect of it.
Well, let me ask. I want to ask this first.
Yeah.
Is how common do you think that idea is?
Incredibly common.
Do you think it's the majority
it's built into the definition of virginity for most people.
Good point.
They believe that you have not lost your virginity. The idea that anal sex is not losing your virginity is so prevalent among Christian teenagers that it's
me
scary.
In the ass because I love Jesus.
Oh, there's that great song, yes, by Garfunkel and Oates. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
But yeah, teenagers believe that oral sex and anal sex are not losing your virginity.
Right.
Those attitudes are really common. A lot of heterosexual guys believe that they didn't get laid unless they had PIV sex.
Right.
And there's all different ways to have sex.
Oh, yeah.
And all of it is sex,
Oh, yeah. Now, I want to ask this question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have to ejaculate? Does the man have to ejaculate for it to be sex?
Well, sometimes there's not a man. So,
right. Yeah, exactly. But
so I would say no.
Okay, right. But I mean, even say we're talking, in the PIV, scheme of things,
mm-hmm.
does the guy have to ejaculate for it to be considered a night of sex?
No.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. I don't. And that's why I wanted to ask that first question was how common do you think this is? Because this is so fucking common.
Yeah, it's really bizarre, like that people haven't questioned this view.
Yeah,
I like what. Again, I'm quoting Dan Savage, but I'm kind of a fangirl. But
me too.
But I like what he says.
Total fangirl.
He says, oral sex is sex. Its last name is sex. It's like Mr. Sex.
Yeah.
And so is hand sex, right?
Yeah.
It's all sex.
Yeah.
And what is the point of just classifying this, narrowing the definition of sex to this one particular act? There are so many other things you can do and that you might want to do for a variety of different reasons.
Right.
That also count. And why are people so concerned with keeping score and counting, right? Maybe it's tied into the idea of like, people have their number, right? Their number of people that they've had sex with.
Oh, yeah.
And so what that number is depends on what you've specifically done with each person and what you define as,
right,
quote, counting,
Yeah, it's like, okay,
right.
How many people have I come in? How many people have I come on? How many?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe people can kind of fudge their numbers that way, but, it really doesn't matter.
No.
Right? It really doesn't matter. Unless you're unhappy with the number of people that you've done whatever with and you want to change that, okay, go out and change it. But telling that number to impress other people is a fool's errand because they're always going to have some judgment about it that's not nice.
Right. I get actually this is a point, this is kind of a side point. Mm-hmm. I get annoyed by that because like it gets to a time where really like stop counting. Okay. Maybe I'm being a little too revealing in this episode overall, mm-hmm. but I've had sex with quite a few people in my time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it's an odd thing because I actually feel I've had people ask me, how many people have you had sex with? And I'm almost ashamed, or maybe not ashamed might not be the right word, but I'm very trepidatious to answer that question.
Well, nobody ever asks you that question with the intention of, like, whatever you say, they're going to be like, oh, yeah, I accept that.
Well, that's the thing. It feels like there's just judgment loaded in the whole thing.
Yeah, of course. If it's too low, if they think it's too low, they're going to say, oh, you've only had sex with that many people. And if it's too high, oh my God, you're such a slut. You've had sex with that many people.
Yeah, I feel like that question doesn't come off without judgment, And so I'm very, very always, I'm always very worried to like answer that. But even so, generally how I will answer it is, I'll just say, and maybe this isn't the best answer, but I'll say, I'm not really sure, or I'll say I lost count. But mm-hmm. here's the thing, I really have.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. And that doesn't mean that I did a lot.
I haven't been counting.
I just think it's particularly odd if someone's keeping fucking score.
Yeah.
That's like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Who are they doing that for? Who are they keeping score for? That's what I'm curious about. I've actually tried to calculate before because somebody, I think a good friend of ours, who really was not judging about this. He was just curious. He wanted to compare it to
I know who you're talking about. He wasn't being judging.
No, he's the only person who's ever asked this to me that I haven't felt was going to be judgmental.
Yeah, I think I might say the same, yeah.
He just was genuinely curious, and he wanted to compare it to his own experience because he wanted to compare our level of experience with his.
Right.
And I tried to calculate my number, and the first thing I said was, okay, well, I thought about it for a minute. Okay, well, what counts as sex, right?
Yeah.
And I said, okay, well, if I count these particular acts, then it's about this many. If I count only PIV, it's this many.
Right.
So the numbers change. And also, I was having trouble, I'm sure I missed a few. And I'm not ashamed of that, right? But I've had a lot of fun in my life. But I'm sure I missed a few, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they weren't that memorable, or I just wasn't thinking about it at that moment for whatever reason, or a few years had gone by or whatever. But, you know, sometimes your count isn't always going to be that accurate.
I think it's just totally unimportant. It's good to have a good time, but really the whole keeping track and score, nah.
Yeah.
But back to the point.
How about quality over quantity? Nobody ever asks how many amazing, memorable, life-changing orgasms have you had?
Right.
How many nights of passion have you had?
Well, I think most people are scared of that answer, because especially if it's someone asking you that's actually fucked you, they're probably, and you say, "Ah, boy."
Oh yeah,
and
that's
you take
pressure.
a second. It's just like, whoops.
Yeah. Pressure's on with that.
Yeah. No, I hear you. But back to the point. This is the thing: is that sex is really this very all-encompassing variety of sensations from multiple points on the body.
Is cybersex sex?
I would classify it as such.
As masturbation sex?
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I think it's all sex.
It's sex you can count on.
Safe sex with the person you love.
That's right.
Yourself. It's funny because people's definitions of how liberal people's definitions of sex are, I think says something about about their attitudes in general.
Right.
If somebody thinks of sex as only PIV, it's a good bet. It's not 100%, but it's a good correlation with a little bit of social conservatism. A little bit.
Yeah, I agree.
Or
not
traditional
entirely,
gender roles, or something like that.
It's certainly not
always. But,
not always.
But I've noticed there is a correlation there.
Yeah, and it brings up for me the fact that, because a lot of people would think, well, this idea that sex is more than just procreation, and that sex is more than just PIV, that's a new thing. Well, no. It's not. In fact, it's not new at all.
It's one of the oldest things,
right? And actually,
look at the bonobos. They've been doing it not for procreation for years,
right? Or even if you read, Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu, in there he literally tells men, it's like, get women to orgasm as much as you can, but men should only ejaculate. He just said ejaculate. Men should only ejaculate once a month. Now, I'm not advocating that, and I'm not doing that, but I'm just saying that. This is an old idea. This is at least hundreds, if not 1,000-year-old idea, and I'm sure it goes beyond the Tao Te Ching.
That's interesting.
To where there is historical precedent that, guess what? Sex does not mean the guy has to come all over something, or in something. It's not required. It's not part of the program. Now, there's also today there is there are cases where people have it's called post-orgasmic illness syndrome. Okay, POIS. And this is legit. And
I've never heard of this. What is it?
Well, it's something that's getting tested more and more. There's been more testing had come out in 2011 about it. And it's the idea, it's a condition, I'll read right here from Wikipedia if you want to trust that.
Okay.
Is a condition characterized by debilitating symptoms following orgasm that last for a few hours to several days. The phenomenon was first described in 2002. Symptoms usually appear within half an hour of orgasm and resolve after a few days. The sufferer experiences mental symptoms, physical symptoms, or both. Common mental symptoms include cognitive dysfunction, intense discomfort, irritability, anxiety, craving for relief, susceptibility to nervous system stresses. I mean, it's loaded. muscle pain.
This sounds very much psychological.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's new. The first cases were getting reported in 2002. That doesn't mean it wasn't there before. If it is what it is.
Wow, that's interesting.
So,
I'm sure they would say Prozac is the cure for this, but
probably.
I don't think so. Wow. I mean, the mind is a powerful thing, okay? Yes. I'm all for evidence-based medicine and so forth, but you cannot deny that when you feel certain things, emotions, whatever, stress has real hormonal effects on your body that are totally biochemically measurable. You can measure the amount of cortisol and epinephrine, adrenaline in somebody's body,
sure.
And those are stress hormones that are a direct result of feeling fear and stress, and they do have impacts on your physiology. And so to say that the mind and the mental state doesn't have effects on your physical body is not true at all. That your mind does affect your body.
Yeah, I mean, the research is still, very much up in the air on this. There's people reporting that they feel it. So, that if that's how you feel after you orgasm, that's how you feel. As far as the origins and what to do about it,
that would suck if you felt that. Like, maybe some people do genuinely feel it.
Right.
Perhaps they're not consciously aware of why this happens to them.
Right.
And perhaps if they were able to dig into some of the emotional issues that they may have surrounding orgasm or sex or shame or humiliation, maybe that would help them figure that out. I don't know. I don't want to dismiss it and say, oh, it's all in their head. It is a legit problem, even if it is all in their head.
Right. I mean, if a person expresses this and they're feeling it, okay, you as their partner, guess what? You need to figure out something other than PIV. Or just the fact that
or other than them
or
orgasming,
other than them orgasming, whatever, however this works, male or female.
There are some people who do like freak out about PIV sex.
Sure.
Some of them are women who basically choose to only date other women.
Right.
Because they don't ever want to be penetrated by a penis,
But all these people that we're talking about are still fully, you can still have a relationship with them, still love them, and sex can still occur. Just it's not, the by the book stuff that that a lot of people, the majority of people, I think, expect sex to be.
Yeah.
No, and can it be just as fulfilling? Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Some of the best sex in my life had nothing to do with PIV.
Oh yeah. To answer that question, just think about, what if you could, what if you could only have PIV in going forward in the future? Do you think that would be a fulfilling sex life if you could only, no oral sex, no touching genitalia at all, only PIV? Do you think that would be fulfilling? No, it's one element of a diverse and well-rounded sex life.
Right.
It's one element, but it's not the whole thing. It's not, some people may consider it the main course, but it's not your entire dinner.
Yeah,
you need the appetizers in there, the dessert.
There's a lot of what would be called self-help books about sex out there, and really, I think, and I've read some of them not because I need help. I'm not boasting either. I'm just saying that I didn't read them because what do I do here?
You can always learn something.
There's nothing wrong with reading those books, but my point, I think, some of them are very good. Ann Hooper's stuff is interesting. My point is that I don't know many of these books that really come out and say in very clear terms in the first chapter, the first step to having a better sex life is accepting the fact that your dick going into a vagina is not the end-all be-all. That there is so much more. And I think if you thought about that, and if you thought about ways to please a woman besides that have to do with her vagina, you might have an incredible sex life ahead of you.
Dicks aren't always hard either. Hey, Brian, what's that funny sticker over your laptop webcam? I was trying to spy on you while you were in the shower, but now I can't.
See, that's why I have it. And it's from EFF.org.
EFF, what's that?
It's the Electronic Frontier Foundation, totally donor-funded organization that fights for internet freedom, privacy.
Wow, that sounds great. So EFF.org, I support internet freedom and privacy, and maybe you do too.
Yeah, and you can support them with Bitcoin.
The Electronic Frontier Foundation at EFF.org.
Brian! Stop playing those video games!
Just a minute, Mom.
Game Talk.
Oh, it is time for Game Talk. This whole show has been my favorite. This is great.
Yeah, this has been a great show.
Bitcoin, sex. We should do this kind of thing, you and I, more often.
Oh, I'd love to.
I think maybe we should have our own show or something. But anyway, I do love to talk video games. It's one of my favorite pastimes. I have a passion for video games. I don't treat them as a distraction, as many do. I treat them as I have an absolute passion about them, and a lot of people do, and they take them very seriously. And developers, and so of course, Game Talk, I get to talk about video games in various ways, various aspects, and it's interesting how video games become, art. Stephanie, let me know if you'd agree with this. Okay. Art in all of its forms is a commentary on our culture.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. It always has been. Mm-hmm. From the Mona Lisa, even earlier, frescoes on Roman walls, of orgies,
that
were
were plastered over by British prudes.
Yeah, exactly.
Archaeologists.
Yeah. Anyway, and so, games have become, people say this all the time to the point of cliche, but it's true. Games have become art. A lot of them are very, very artistic in style, by design. They're not designed. Some games aren't even made to be won anymore. It's not like there's not a point to, there's not a set amount of points you need to collect, or there's not like a literal end game to the game, where it's just an artistic flair that you kind of experience. Anyway, and this is interesting. This article I have from Kotaku, and I'm glad you're on it because I'd love to talk about it with you. And it's What Games Taught Me About Having Two Girlfriends at Once. And this is actually being written by Patricia Hernandez, who I love reading her work from Kotaku. She's great. Most of the stories from Kotaku that I read on the show actually come from Patricia Hernandez. Maybe sometime I'll have her on the show. Anyway, sometimes I'll read it a little here. Sometimes when we are lying in bed after the giggles subside and our hands finally give it a rest, my girlfriend likes to joke about how video games prepared me for a life where I go out with all the cuties. Cuties as in cute people, gender doesn't matter to me, and girlfriend as in one of my girlfriends. I'm poly, short for polyamorous. Okay, so Patricia Hernandez is polyamorous, which awesome, good for her. Which basically means that my partners and I are consensually not exclusive, not to be confused with polygamy, which centers around marriage. In other words, we can date or sleep with other people provided we talk about it with each other first. This way we can all negotiate and we're comfortable with, as well as talk about any insecurities and jealousy. They're not conventional relationships, but thanks to the level of transparency, support, and understanding my dating life requires, my current relationships are definitely not the best ones, are definitely the best, not definitely not, but they are definitely the best ones I've ever had. I've been poly for a few years now, but it wasn't until recently in which I've actually meaningfully explored it. Before, poly functioned more as the understanding between my partner and I that I could have other relationships if I wanted to. Nothing beyond flings and casual encounters with other folks materialized for a couple of years, though. And so there wasn't much negotiation about what me and my partners were comfortable with when it came to other serious relationships. There was just the transparency of who else I was casually interested in and sleeping with. Things are different now. Two girlfriends, two people I am interested in seriously seeing in the long term, means a lot of juggling, a lot of talking, a lot of negotiating, and a lot of compromises. We're talking like the kind of issues and scenarios I can't really turn to Cosmo about and get shitty advice for.
Why would you want to?
Exactly. So this all feels new to me. Sure, I have plenty of friends who are also poly and are also willing to offer me a lot of advice, but navigating polyamory can still feel like a minefield, even for people with experience. For example, when your family asks you about something special, how do you break the fact that there's more than one, or when they ask you about someone special, how do you break the facts about, that there's more than one special person? If your partner is seeing other people, how do you stop yourself from constantly comparing yourself to their other partners? How do you respectfully and safely carry out a threesome that involves multiple girlfriends? Okay, all good questions.
That is a great problem to have.
Yeah, it is a great problem to have. But where do you go? To talk about this stuff?
Yeah.
And it's a great point. And so the odd thing that she's going to bring up here is that the only real area she's seeing, now there might be television shows, and you might know about these better than I do, that describe polyamorous relationships or that show them.
I think the television shows kind of make a mockery out of them.
Yeah, because they're reality shows.
Yeah, they're just kind of like bait to get people to watch, as far as I understand it. It's just showing this drama-filled relationships.
Yeah,
it's not really
it's
depicting.
All set up. It's not reality.
Yeah, no, reality TV is a total sham anyway.
It is
in all areas, but. I think she's right that there aren't that many places you can go to get advice with this stuff, except I would say the world of podcasting, because there are tons of polyamory and non-monogamy podcasts out there. That was how I first got exposed to it, actually. That's how I learned about it first.
Yeah, that's a good point, because and podcasting can be very private. And no one can know what you're into.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Because,
you just sit there, listen to it.
Your
with
headphones,
your headphones on.
and you can make sure no one else knows what's going on. So, even if there's some degree of exploration going on and maybe some unfortunate shame or something, with podcasting, that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. That's a great way to look into these things. But anyway, she's making the point that in video games is really the only place she's ever seen it getting treated very seriously. And I think she may be of the opinion too, because what Big Love? What was the show?
Oh yeah, Big Love. I actually liked Big Love. That was a show about Mormon polygamists, but that was polygamy, as she noted before, where it's like a marriage scenario where there's one man that's married to 3 different women, and at one point during the show, he almost gets married to a 4th.
Okay, but not the best case example to probably get ideas on.
Yeah, it's a very specific setup, and they're all religious, and they're doing it for religious reasons and some other reasons too. I guess the plot in that show was that there was a monogamous straight couple that was married, and then the woman had some kind of cancer that affected her reproductive system, and she couldn't have any more babies, and they really wanted to have more babies. So they were Mormons anyway, so they figured they'd bring in another wife, and the wife was the nurse of the woman who had cancer, and the 2 women didn't love each other like in a sexual way, but they loved each other like sisters anyway. So they were sister wives. And then then they brought in the 3rd wife, and she was their babysitter or something. They just kind of kept adding to it.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, that was just kind of a very specific situation. And they did bring up some issues of jealousy, and the way that they depicted it was interesting. And in this setup, there were 3 different houses, and the man, the patriarch, he owned this Home Depot company, which was bringing, he was quite wealthy, and he had a different house for each wife, and she lived there with her kids, and then he would sleep in a different house each night, and they had a calendar. They would meet at the beginning of the week, and they would plan out the calendar for the week of how they were going to do all these logistics and who was going to get Bill on which night. And
yeah, see, that all sounds really impractical.
Well, it very much centered around him, whereas if there's a relationship between 3 women and they're not thinking of it as my duty is to be obedient to my husband or something like that, then it's going to be a lot more egalitarian in terms of the dynamic. Although I don't know what kind of setup their relationship has, right? If there's 3 people who are involved in a relationship, it could be that just there's person A, B, and C, and A and C both are in a relationship with person B, but A and C are not in a relationship with each other. That's called a V setup.
Okay.
So there's a V with one person in the middle. Or it could be a triangle where everybody is in a relationship with everybody else, and that would be like a triangle.
Right. But there's nothing out there showing this really, except for she would claim that, and I'll read on a little bit. Actually, it's interesting. Games along with anime are some of the only places where I regularly see non-monogamy represented at all. Anime has the harem genre, which typically means a character is surrounded by love interests. I can think of one in particular, not Yu Yu Hakusho, Tenshimoyo in Love, I think is a very famous one with that kind of setup. It's interesting with anime and video games too. That's right. With anime and video games as well, at least video games that were released in Japan may have never gotten released to the sanitized America, would be, there's lots of characters where they're transgender or hermaphrodites.
Meaning they have both kinds of genitalia, male and female?
Like they would be some kind of alien or whatever.
There's lots of tentacles.
Tentacles, sure. But I mean, all this alternative stuff doesn't get put anywhere in the mainstream, at least not through the bulk of the world. Japan would seem to be somewhat of a somewhat of an oddball in that, but I'll read a little more. Visual novels and other games that are heavily influenced by anime sometimes provide a harem route for players, which is basically a playthrough in which one can have multiple romantic relationships. The thing about these depictions is that they're usually more in the realm of fantasy than they are depictions of healthy negotiated relationships. They're more interested in titillating you with the idea of a bunch of gorgeous women all fawning over you than they are in presenting you the messier, complicated reality of having multiple serious relationships. Now,
yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah, now this visual novel genre is very popular in Japan, and it's essentially you get to choose what to say, and then depending on what you say will decide what the character does, and then the next drawing, because it's an anime style, maybe 3D sometimes, but will depict whether or not she takes her her top off or whatever, or whatever happens, or if 3D. Or if she runs away. There was this one time in Fable 2 where I got set out to romance every single villager in every town. I mean, why not? I was curious if the game would let me do it. I'd spend hours going up to people and wooing them with kisses and hip thrusts. I'd spend all sorts of money on gifts.
If only that worked in real life. You just thrust your hips, and in reality, it's kind of the opposite.
Right. And taking people out on... Yeah. Taking people out on perfect dates. I'd pour through their preferences and try to cater to their every desire. Eventually, I couldn't go into any town without having a small army of lovesick villagers asking me to take them someplace quieter, or more sweetly, asking for my hand in marriage. I wasn't just some Don Juan, though. I was also a huge thief of things that aren't hearts, I remember walking into a shop intent on stealing some potions, only to have my very own loves turn against me after witnessing the robbery.
Oh, it hurts.
Yeah. So this is actually a pretty long article, and I just want to finish off with the last bit. Based on what they provided so far, I wouldn't say games have taught me much that is practical about how to approach polyamorous relationships, not beyond the idea that scheduling can really be hard sometimes, which is kind of what you brought up with Big Love.
Yeah, but they might normalize it.
That's the thing.
And get you to think about it, yeah.
Right. If it can treat it like it's absolutely normal that this can occur, and they're still not even really to that point, but they're getting closer than any other venue, I think that'd be a big leap. So go video games. Good on them.
Tonight, Knight Rider crashes into your living room.
I don't believe this.
Well, you'd better believe it. A lone crusader for justice drives this crime crasher.
The world's most fantastic car.
And together they can do just about anything.
After all, we're only human.
Don't press your luck.
And now buckle up for action with the fastest show on television, Knight Rider.
See Knight Rider online today. And now back to Sovryn Tech.
Wow. It's a website of the week.
It is time for Website of the Week, where I bring what I consider to be the best content of the web. Sometimes it's terrible content of the web, admittedly. But generally, I like to share maybe the blogs that I look at that I think you might be interested. I've actually had people ask me that, like, Brian, what blogs do you go to every day? Because, I'm obviously collecting a lot of information to do this show or whatever, and I hate Facebook, even though I post on it all the time. But, yeah, so, this is a blog that it's only been around a few years. I think maybe like 2011 was when someone first told me about it. But I like it. And it's everybodyswing.com. Now, everybodyswing.com, Everybody Swing obviously is in reference to swingers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That wasn't obvious. Could be a golf website.
Could be, or it could be, maybe like backyard swings for the kids. I don't, whatever. But anyway, this is for swingers, and it's news and blogs, and, it kind of
They have a podcast, too. I just saw that.
They do, yeah. And it's news from all around the world. They're talking about how a swinger club is opening in Delhi, a whole bunch of...
Not in Delhi, India, like
no.
In a Delhi, in a former Delhi in Pennsylvania.
Right, yeah, sorry, yeah. Things being converted into that. Really good advice, sex advice, even like the things we were talking about in the last segment about what to do, like with feelings of jealousy and stuff like that. Those kind of get talked about.
So, really? So sometimes I feel a little skeptical. I've never been in the swinging scene, but sometimes I feel a little skeptical that it's really, it gets sold as this big fantasy. It's this wonderful thing where it's got this great community and everybody's hot and they're all DTF, you know.
Okay.
And
the second to last part is
everybody's
not true.
hot.
Yeah, that's not accurate.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know that people are going to find this fantasy that they're looking for. There's probably going to be, you know, I know there's a problem with there being a shortage of women, especially single women who want to have a threesome with you. That's why they're called unicorns, because they're rare.
Right.
And finding one is like finding a unicorn.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, no, it's not. It's a good introduction, in my opinion, into what's going on. It is interesting to keep news, you know, to get news on the scene. Like, there was something I didn't know about until recently, is that
the black ring.
The black ring is the new symbol to say
Apparently,
that you're
putting a flamingo in your yard is another swinger mating call thing.
Sure. So, you know, anyway, you get information here you're not going to get elsewhere. Like, I've never heard anyone else talk about the black ring.
Me neither, and that's cool. That's useful information to know,
essentially,
right?
you wear a black ring on your right hand. If someone's wearing a black ring on your right hand, or on their right hand, they are open.
I'm pretty sure I know a monogamous couple who has black titanium rings that they wear, and they are not swingers.
Right hand or left?
I don't know.
Yeah, see? Yeah.
Oh, it's on the right hand.
It's got to be on the right hand.
It's on the See, I don't know about any of these traditions, so.
Oh, I know. They're all atrocious. Well, this is a new one, and this one's actually kind of cool. I mean, since it's on the right hand, it might be the mark of the beast. I don't know.
Okay. What do you think of this phenomenon being called swinging? Because I think that there are a lot of people who might be into this activity who wouldn't say swingers, because it kind of connotes this 1970s, you know, key swapping parties and
it's a term that's opened up. Yeah, it's a term that's opened up quite a bit. So I don't know if it's the best thing. I mean, there's podcasts. What's the one? Life on the Swing Set.
Yeah, and then there's a swinger cast. That's
swinger
a popular
cast.
one.
I mean, so it's a term still widely used. It's definitely broadened a lot. Like, I remember when I was younger, I thought swingers were just people that were married but had open relationships, but you had to be married. Now that's not true. Swingers can include polyamorous people, all kinds of things. But that's why sites like this are interesting, even if you're not interested in swinging, to just kind of get an idea of the superficial aspects.
Hey everybody, it's Stephanie. I am the Sovryn Tech producer. But did you know I am also a voiceover artist? Yes, it's true. I make audiobooks, commercials for your business. I narrate explainer videos. Pretty much any audio project that you can think of, I'm probably willing to work on it, or I have worked on it in the past. And if you want to hear some samples of my previous work, or you want to find out a little bit more about what I do, then I encourage you to check out my voiceover website, which is smvoice.info, smvoice.info. Now back to Sovryn Tech. Hacker Stories.
It is time for Hacker Stories, where I talk about some of the real heroes on planet Earth, those being hackers. And, you know, I got a few things I want to talk about with this week, Stephanie. And of course, thank you so much. I am joined by the lovely and hyper-intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy.
Thank you, Brian. I need to come up with such a loving nickname for you, because your nickname for me is kind of caught on. Like, other people call me that now.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
On Facebook and emails or whatever, is the lovely and hyper-intelligent doctor there today. You know, I mean, it happens all the time, and that's great. I'm glad, because it's absolutely true.
Thank you for that, Brian.
You are just an incomparable woman, and the honor of you know, getting to. I mean, of course, a lot of people know. I don't mean to turn my show into a love letter, but really, you know, we are in a relationship. We do live together, and it is the best time in the world.
Oh, we have so much fun together. I love living with you.
I love living with you.
So much fun.
Yeah, it's great.
You can just imagine if we have this much fun on the air, what it's like.
Oh yeah,
when the microphones are off.
Yeah. So, but that's kind of why I talk about hacker stories, because sometimes maybe the microphones never turn off, and fortunately we have the heroes, you know, these hackers out there that get to, you know, let us know about these sorts of things. And, real quick, I want to mention that I've heard on Free Talk Live, which, of course, Free Talk Live is the flagship show of LRN, which is the network that Sovryn Tech is on. So I would think there's a lot of cross-pollination of listeners. And so I want to address this real quick because a lot of people have been calling into Ian Freeman of Free Talk Live, great guy, and, giving him the definition of hackers. I think it's vitally important that the word hackers never has a negative connotation in the usage of it by liberty-minded people, by anybody hearing the sound of my voice anyway. Mm-hmm. We need to get rid of that, okay? Because even the term black hat isn't really self-imposed. It was something that was put on by the mainstream media. Like, okay, we got to figure out how to define these hackers. And so they classified something that just bunks classification. Yeah. And that's terrible. Okay. So, but there is the term hackers where it doesn't mean, and these people are just as much heroes. There are hackers who are just programmers. And then there are hackers who do, pen testing, penetration testing, security systems, and things like that. And who, are just curious people going into other systems, none of which is no victim. It's okay. So anyway, let's work on that. Just making sure that however we want to use the word hacker, as far as like, is it a programmer, is it a pen tester, or someone, looking into government websites to let us all know in the future about how the government has been so egregious. Let's make sure that those people are, talked about in the highest light and not with the word hacker being a negative connotation. So anyway,
I like the phrase "hackers are heroes."
Yeah, hackers,
which I've heard thrown around not just by you.
Yeah, and they are, in my opinion, they absolutely are. But while we do have these heroic hackers like Edward Snowden, or even some that have sadly passed, like Aaron Swartz, who did a lot to reveal, how evil or, how crazy the government is with the surveillance state. We neglect at times to mention, though we'll bring up Verizon here and there, I guess, or some of these other companies, but we really neglect to talk about privatized surveillance. And it's a question that I don't think comes up a lot. And now I have a story from Gizmodo here. I don't have to read it. I just want the tagline out there. Hundreds of firms are selling NSA level spy tech. And that's not okay. That's what they're saying.
Seriously?
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So now you can look at the examples and whatever.
I kind of figured that, but it's interesting to see that pointed out so obviously.
Right. I can read a quick shot here. In total, there are 1,203 documents detailing 97 different surveillance technologies, including everything from sophisticated spy cameras to software that can intercept phone call data, text messages, and emails, just like the NSA does. The companies are also marketing these things to some of the world's worst, dictators. But they're selling them to companies, too. And this is the topic that doesn't come up, is... okay, fine, the NSA is evil, this surveillance is evil. What about when companies do it?
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot of liberty-minded people who would say, well, it's private.
As long as it's a private company, they can do no wrong.
As long as there's no government, hey, man, you don't like it, you don't go near them. And
I would say those are vulgar libertarians,
yeah,
but
certainly.
but maybe they would say, well, yeah, of course, like companies are free to do that, but they're going to get a bad reputation and some pushback, and perhaps there'll be competing companies that sell you protective services. But
sure.
I don't want to have to buy a protective service.
No, right.
Not saying I want to use the government to stop it or anything, because of course they won't. They wouldn't do that.
No,
but,
right.
I definitely have an issue with companies who do stuff like that, for sure.
Yeah. So this is the overall question that I'm wondering about, and I'm not expecting us, you and I, to come up with answers to this right here inside of a 5 or 7, 8 minute segment. Okay. But I want the question out there is like here's a question. Okay, we don't like the surveillance state. So someone in the middle of Orlando, Florida, okay, where houses are pretty close together, someone has a security camera outside to watch for thieves or whatever. Is their neighbor's privacy being aggressed?
Well, usually those don't include the neighbors in the shot unless the neighbor comes up to their house.
But when you're right, but are you seeing the neighbor's lawn?
Mm-hmm.
And what if the, or is it like, say you're taking it, in Orlando, and this is commonplace, you have a camera in the backyard.
Mm-hmm. And it faces someone else's yard, and
someone else's backyard, and maybe, who knows what's going on back there? What do we do about that?
Yeah.
And so
I think a lot of that onus falls on the person who wants their privacy to take their privacy, or to take responsibility for their privacy, because I don't think anything you do out in public is really fair to criticize and say it should be private. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're walking out even in your yard, that's not really private. You're out in the public view.
You're outside.
If you're in a closed bathroom with the window shade drawn, yeah, then I think you're taking reasonable steps to protect your privacy, and that in that case you should have your privacy. But then again, if you have your cell phone in there, there's a camera, so
Right. Yeah, well, and I guess I wonder too, with these technologies being available, I mean, that's a pretty good answer. And of course, we always say you don't own the photons that are hitting your face.
No.
Okay, so, what can you do about cameras? Not a whole hell of a lot. Maybe put up a fence. Maybe that's the answer to that one. But, with companies doing this sort of thing, like let's say there was no governments whatsoever. And yet you still had, Samsung releasing phones with the forward-facing camera, and to get data on like where you are and how they could possibly give you better advertising, whatever, they turned on that, the camera without telling you.
Right.
Now you could say that somehow that's a breach of contract or something, but what contract says that they can't turn on their own? Isn't that the thing? Like, no, it's Samsung built it so they could do whatever they want with it because they built it the way they wanted to, and then they do that. And I mean, I guess the answer is that people would say, well, we'll find out that they're doing it. And once we find out, then we boycott them and we don't buy their stuff anymore.
It's always weird when like you buy something from some company and then they sort of still claim this ownership over it. Like, for instance, we live in a condo. And in the yard, there is a propane tank. The propane tank is not ours. It is owned by the company who fills the propane tank.
Right.
And so, that gives us a little bit of an issue because we can't just dig it up and replace it with something else because it's not ours. It's just we're using the propane that's in it and we're patronizing that company, but it kind of locks us in. And phones are the same way. Like you talked a while ago about Google Play Books, right?
Yeah, where it's licensed.
Yeah, where you like if
you don't actually own the book.
Yeah, exactly.
You license the opportunity to read it in the country where it's actually legal to read the book.
Yeah, and they can gank it from you if you walk into Canada or something.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So, that always that's always a little bit weird. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and Microsoft's the same way. You don't own Windows. You are paying for a license to be able to use it, then they can revoke that license at any time. That's in the writing. No, I mean, part of the obvious answer to this is that you deal with companies that explicitly state, we don't turn on the cameras. We don't do this. That way you can get some degree, of restitution from these people. But I guess the primary purpose of me bringing this up is that we have to look, if we're concerned about being spied on all the time, we've got to look in all directions. Okay. Because we have a society with a mentality that thinks spying is okay. All right. And that's,
or doesn't know any differently.
Yeah.
Like
or does,
kids are growing up with no idea what privacy really is.
Right. But then, one could say to some degree that people, a couple thousand years ago didn't really know what privacy was either. Now, that can go too far because it's not entirely true. I've talked about that before. Like Vint Cerf was saying, who's one of the guys that helped create the internet.
Yeah.
He said that privacy is an anomaly. No. I mean, there's always been sealed letters being sent, between families, for thousands of years. It's been that way. So there has been some degree of privacy. So, but I'm really just asking, I want people to look around. And say, we can't, concentrate on the NSA because they're the ones with the guns. Okay. But if privacy, let's find out what privacy really means to each other, because we may have to look far beyond governments to get that privacy. And nobody's, that's the problem is I don't feel anybody's talking about that at all.
Yeah.
Now there's people who are concerned about like their kind of, not their privacy, but they get concerned about their name getting used. Like I mentioned Instagram earlier, where a year or so ago, they talked about, they put it in their terms of use or terms of agreement that, we can use your pictures and we can use your username for advertising.
Mm-hmm.
And so, they're concerned about something, them putting up. They're not concerned about the privacy. They're concerned about how something that they've done is going to get used. And I think most people are actually just concerned that Instagram would be making a buck and they weren't getting paid for it. Otherwise, if they said, well, and we'll give you, 10% of whatever comes out of, the sale that Instagram does, the people would probably, say, oh, okay, that's perfectly fine. So they're not really concerned about privacy, in the broad sense. And so I'm open to your thoughts. SovrynTech@riseup.net. Like I said, I didn't expect us to have an answer for this, but I'm just curious, how far do we go with all this?
That's a good question.
We'll be back with more.
What does freedom mean? Tune in to LRN.FM to find out. LRN.FM is the Liberty Radio Network, a collection of live talk radio and podcasts, all coming from a principled pro-liberty perspective. LRN.FM show hosts aren't left, right, or conspiracy kooks. You can tune in 24/7 to LRN.FM via your phone, computer, satellite, and more. Listen free anytime at LRN.FM. That's LRN.FM.
Would you like to play a game? Game of the Week.
It is time for Game of the Week, where I talk about a game that, maybe was missed, something that needs a good reinstall, maybe a classic that a lot of people don't know about that still plays really good. Or, maybe, it's just something that went under the radar with all these AAA titles coming out.
And I usually have no clue. Because I don't really play games.
You play Daleks.
That's the one game I play. It's kind of embarrassing. But I'm doing other stuff. I'm making voiceovers and I'm doing audio work and...
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm generally pulling from a past catalog of games that I played in the past that I would like to connect with people on and say, hey, yeah, have you ever played this? Oh, wasn't that a great experience? So I can have a shared experience with someone. I definitely, I know what you mean. So there's a lot of people that don't play games that they don't have the time, or they're doing other fun activities, and I think that's fantastic. So
would you rather get laid or play a video game?
That's so easy. I'll take the one that begins with the letter L. This week's game is actually a remake. Because sometimes for Game of the Week, what I'll do is I'll let you know about an upcoming, kind of like I told you about an upcoming app, I'll let you know about an upcoming game. And this is really exciting. This is M.U.L.E, and that's an acronym, M.U.L.E, and there's a period in between each of those. And it was a game that I originally played. It came out for quite a few different systems back. I think the first release was in '83, but I didn't play it until... Boy, it might even be close to a decade later because it came out for the original Nintendo. And it was really something because it's a game that's totally based around, resources. There's no killing. There's no, it's not a violent game at all. It's just who can essentially create the best economy. And you have these mules, which are literally that, the robotic mules that, that do your work for you. I think M.U.L.E, it's multiple use labor element, and
that's clever.
It is. It's pretty clever, and it was a game that was a ton of fun, and it was one of the reasons that my friends and I started playing it way back was that it was one of the few games that the original Nintendo only had 2 controller ports, so only 2 players.
Yep.
But then they released a 4-port expander, and so it was one of the few games where you could actually have 4 people playing. You'd have more than 2. You get 3 or 4, which was really, really exciting. And so it was just a lot of fun and it was basic at the time, but there was nothing like that on Nintendo where it wasn't like a platformer or like Mario where you're just jumping around and whatever. And not that I have any problem with those games. And where it wasn't, Rambo going around shooting. It was literally, a game based on economics. And I thought that was so exciting. And so they're doing a remake now.
Cool.
Which, I think is great, and I'm really excited to see how this turns out. If the gameplay stays in place, I can't see it being a bad thing by any means. But they call it M.U.L.E Returns. It's coming out for iOS, and it will eventually come out for Android. Actually, I think it's already out for iOS. And just a lot of fun, and it was so different from from the usual, stuff that especially at that time that people were playing. And today, I think I feel like it would hold up just as well. They would just update the graphics to some degree. Very simple game. It's definitely a game I think that could be played, when in the free time, because a lot of these games on iPad, on iOS and Android are just meant to be played when you have some free time. And so I think,
speaking of games that are based on economics,
sure.
It's kind of interesting because a lot of the research that gets done on economics involves people playing games where they have to make decisions, and then they collect data about which decisions people make when they get, tested with certain scenarios within the context of a game.
Sure, absolutely.
So, I don't know, with this particular game, maybe there's not like the opportunity to use that data for research purposes, but for some games, there definitely is.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's becoming very popular. And actually, I think next week's Game of the Week, I'm going to talk about another Android and iOS game that is actually literally helping the world by playing it. It's helping fight cancer, I believe, by going through data. And it's like kind of a shooter. But I'm not going to give it away. You'll have to find out next week what that's all about.
Okay.
But M.U.L.E. Returns, I think, will be a fantastic. I can't wait for it to come out on Android. You couldn't pay me to get an iOS device. It's okay if you have one. It's okay if you have one. I'm just my own preference. I'm just expressing my opinion.
I share that opinion. Yeah.
Sure. So when it comes out for Android, I will be checking it out, and I will probably end up doing it for Pick of the Week because, like, M.U.L.E. in and of itself, I remember the guys I used to play that with, and we all ended up doing decently all right for ourselves pretty early on, so maybe that had some inspiration with it. I'll be back with more. Do you have a business or product that you are interested in getting advertised to a largely U.S.-based audience on an award-winning podcast and radio show airing on hundreds of radio stations? Let Free Talk Live be a part of your advertising portfolio, because the world of audio never fades. Contact me, Brian Sovryn, and I can get an advertising package that will work within your budget. Email me at brian@freetalklive.com. And that's Brian with an I. Again, brian@freetalklive.com.
Hey, what are you doing? I can't believe I caught you again. Jesus doesn't approve of this little habit of yours.
I know, baby, I know it's wrong, but it feels so right.
Well, it ain't.
But I've been doing it since I was 12 years old.
It's nothing but a sinful perversion of nature, if you ask me.
But baby, I don't ever want to stop looking at tech websites, new gadgets, video games, software, or any of that stuff.
Well, then I'm leaving.
Okay. Bye.
Pick of the Week.
It is time for Pick of the Week, where I get to talk about, I just get to geek out. And
fair enough. It's always fun to geek out.
It is fun. And, I'll end up talking about anything. It could be, it could be a comic book, a movie, a topic. Oftentimes it's a topic. And actually, a lot of people really like that. But it can literally be anything. It could even be, a product. It could be another website. It could be, a piece of software, whatever. It can be anything, that I want to talk about for a pretty good extended period of time. So, and of course, today I am joined by the lovely and hyper-intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy.
Hello.
And this week, this is something I'm pretty excited about, and I think you're excited about too. And what I'm actually talking about is, I guess, technically software.
Right.
But it has much larger implications.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it's freespeechme. And you can go to the website to find out about it, which is freespeechme.org.
Yes.
And what this is it's based around, it's a Firefox plugin. Hopefully it'll be a plugin for other things too. An extension maybe for Chrome or whichever. It's easy. Firefox is literally is open source. I mean, it's one of the kings of open source. Mm-hmm. And so it's very easy to develop stuff for it. And I don't blame people for doing that. But, if you can get on Chrome, like CryptoKit did Chrome, CryptoKit being the PGP messenger and Bitcoin wallet system, which is just great. It's good. They're going to come out for Firefox later. Usually these end up coming out for just about every browser other than Internet Explorer. And Free Speech Me is based off NameCoin. Stephanie, would you be willing to, kind of explain NameCoin?
Yeah, sure. So as they say in their Indiegogo campaign, I like the way that they put this. So I didn't think of this. I just want to give them credit. They call NameCoin a spin-off of Bitcoin, and that's a great way to describe it.
A spin-off?
Yeah, it's basically an altcoin. Somebody took Bitcoin and changed it and added some stuff, and they get NameCoin. And what NameCoin is it's a cryptocurrency, and it has a blockchain. But within the blockchain, it also has a way to create a decentralized domain name registry. So currently, when you register a domain name, and a domain name is like the telephone book of the internet, right?
Right.
It enables you to type in letters instead of an IP address to go to a website.
Right. And a domain name is like sovereigntech.com.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So basically what this is currently when you register a domain name, you ask a central authority called ICANN, which is the International something and name something.
Yeah, exactly.
It's one of those agencies. And, this is famously, I don't know if you remember this, Brian, but a while ago, somebody had registered ronpaul.com or something like that, and they didn't want to sell it to Ron Paul, and he wanted to complain to the ICANN and say that they should be taken over by the UN in a very strange display of sudden like for government when it suited his interests. But
the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers.
Ah, yes, how could I forget? Really, the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. Well, there is no ICANN when it comes to NameCoin. There is instead a distributed ledger, a blockchain, which everybody has a copy of, and contained within the blockchain is information about people registering domain names that are their top-level domains that end with .bit. So you could have briansovereign.bit or sovereigntech.bit or something like that.
Someone's going to grab that, and they're going to charge me
I'm going to grab it. I'm going to squat on it before anybody does that. But actually, since this process is decentralized, it is actually super cheap to register domain names this way. You can register a domain, and it times it in the number of blocks on the NameCoin blockchain, but it's a little less than a year. It's like 250 days that the registration is good for, and then you have to renew it for like a tenth of the cost. But it only costs like 0.015 NameCoins to register a domain, and right now NameCoin is like $5.
Yeah.
So you're paying 50 cents to register a domain for almost a year. That's at least 10 times cheaper than the current system. It costs at least $9.99 to register a domain now.
Right.
With the centralized system. So this is a big improvement. The problem is that you really can't view .bit domains unless you change your DNS settings manually, and it's kind of a pain to do.
And you'd have to go back if you want to visit the regular internet.
Yes.
You would have to go back and change all your settings again, back and forth. And it's a pain in the butt. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But this is so important. This is like Tor. I'm not saying it's exactly like Tor, but I'm saying it's like Tor in that it is a dark net. It is a place where we can get away from all the crazy regulations that exist out there. And it's a fact, okay, that these...
Well, if it's a decentralized registration domain registry, that means that the domain can't be seized.
Exactly. And that's the importance, okay?
Yes.
Is that because you take a case...
That's why it's called Free Speech Me.
Right. And you take a case like the Pirate Bay, where they have to jump names all the time, and because, this ICANN shuts this one down because a country tells them to do so, and then this one gets shut down, and they jump all over the place. Like just in the past, in 2013, I think I saw them change names like 6 times.
Wow.
I mean, that's so bad.
Yeah.
And it's
bad for people who want to find the website, right?
Right.
Where did it go?
Yeah.
There's this funny graphic here with a bald eagle on it. What the hell?
Yeah. So, but I mean, it's awesome that, of course, that Pirate Bay just still keeps coming back. You can't stop them. And this is something that, NameCoin, the NameCoin system is a really, really great way to solve a lot of these problems. And, to eliminate these control structures that exist. And at the same time, it's a coin. Now, Stephanie, now I'll admit, like, I understand the features NameCoins offers, but I'm not totally, I'm not totally up on NameCoin. I am accepting NameCoin as donations for the show, because a large part in due now, because of this project, I support it so much. And I believe in what Michael W. Dean of Freedom Fiends is helping promote this. He's part of it, and I love his show, and I fully support what he's doing here with Free Speech Me. And so, but I mean, like NameCoin, would you use that like you would a normal currency?
You can, yeah. You absolutely can do that, but the importance of NameCoin is that it is the only thing that you can use to register names that end with .bit.
Right. Okay. So it's kind of a currency that has a specific point.
Yeah, but it's got value because that's something you can only do with NameCoin.
Oh yeah, I agree. I mean, it's if you're going to do one thing, making it something that is so quintessential to the internet is a great one thing to a great one trick to pull off. I mean, NameCoin has a couple other features, but by and large, this is its, this is what it's meant to do.
Right.
And I think it's an incredibly exciting project. And Free Speech Me, to make it so simple to switch between these things, I think is great. In fact, in many ways, it'll have a one-up on Tor in that regard, because that's not that, I don't know that, do you know, does NameCoin allow for any kind of anonymity like Tor does?
It sort of does. So, I don't really completely understand it, but I am going to be interviewing Michael W. Dean and Jeremy Rand, who are working on this project.
Right. I mean, I don't expect the app to have a degree of anonymity, but I wonder if the NameCoin network has some kind of anonymity. If it doesn't yet, it can certainly be added in. You could kind of pull a zero coin, or a meta layer over it to allow for that anonymity.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's cool. I'm excited. Again, I'm excited that someone's trying to do this stuff. There's other projects that may be piggybacking on it. Like there's a decentralized web browser called SyncNet.
Yep.
That may use the NameCoin system to get around, because that kind of runs off the same idea that you have a blockchain, or you not necessarily, they wouldn't call it a blockchain. It'd be more like BitTorrent Sync, where all the data all over the place gets put everywhere.
Yeah.
So that way it just can't be shut down. You'd have to seize every single human being's computer to kill the internet, to kill that version of the internet. And that's exciting. Scalability is an issue, of course. Okay. I'm sure scalability will be an issue for NameCoin as much as it's becoming an issue for Bitcoin. But these are the alternatives, because, it's a question I get a lot on this show is it time we go to another internet? Do we need to devise our own internet? Well, people are. They're already doing it.
Yeah, that's totally possible with this.
Yeah, I agree.
There's something, too, about... so this plugin, Free Speech Me, it says that this can be used to give Tor and I2P addresses domain names that are human memorable and can point to a website on Tor. So you could use this, you could go to a .bit address that takes you to Tor.
Yeah, see, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's so cool to really get easy access to the darknet, because I think everybody should be using Tor.
That would be great.
As often as possible. Okay. Now I know in the world we exist in right now, like Google's services are just so intertwined. I mean, you can still get to Google services through Tor. But I understand why people don't necessarily, for a lot of things where they don't use Tor.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we can deal to have the anonymity and to just be a thorn in the side of the NSA and whoever else, by just using something simple as Tor. Oh, let's do it. Let's just do it. And I agree the
And if that doesn't persuade you, with their Indiegogo for Free Speech Me, they have a t-shirt that you can get if you donate that says, I saved the internet and all I got was this t-shirt. That's pretty cute.
That's awesome.
That's pretty cute.
That's good. So again, it's the whole point behind this, the whole point behind the .bits is to just, take the power away from governments. Why wouldn't anyone want to support this, especially at the low cost they're at now. Now, this takes off. Obviously, NameCoins are going to be worth, theoretically hundreds of dollars, maybe even thousands of dollars in the near future.
Right.
And so get in now. And why not? You know what I mean? That's the thing. I say this before, I'm going to say it again. Throw $100 at anything.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
See where it goes.
You can lose $100. It's all right. Throw $100 at anything and just see what happens, And
anything you think might have potential, right?
Yeah, anything that you have potential, that you think has some degree of potential. And I think this does. I think NameCoin could become, this
could be the killer app for NameCoin, sure.
Yeah, and I mention a lot, I'll say I have like 5 altcoins that I find intriguing. NameCoin's one of them. And so take a look into it. freespeechme.org. And of course, anyway, if you want to donate, you can donate NameCoins if you want to. If you if you decide to get NameCoins after this to the show, everything's in the show notes. Stephanie, thank you so much for being on again. I had a really fun time with this episode.
Me too, Brian. Thank you so much. This has been great.
Yeah, loved it. So anyway, Carpe Lucem, everybody. SovrynTech.com. In the meantime, I'll see you next week.
This has been Sovryn Tech. Visit us at sovryntech.com. That's SOVRYN tech.com. There you can connect with us, see more of what you've heard on today's show, and catch our podcast feed. Sovryn Tech is open source. We encourage you to share. Later, nerds.